Hi, Miss.
Hi, guys. All right, guys, we're going to continue with the revision. We are going to learn about another type of force, which is called the friction force. Okay, so the friction force, guys, is a type of force that is actually working opposite to the direction of the motion, which means that if you're moving forward, the friction force is actually pulling you backwards. And why does it do this? Because it's meant to be stopping any moving object. It's supposed to be stopping any moving object. This is what the friction force does. Okay, so as you can see, this boy is trying to slide over the floor, but he is finding it a little bit difficult, and this is because of the friction force. Okay, so when you roll a ball, does it keep moving like forever, or at some point it starts to slow down and stop?
It stops.
It stops after a while, and yes, it stops after a while, and this is because of the friction force. The ball, the surface of the ball and the surface of the ground, they start to they start to generate a friction force between them, and this is why it starts to slow the ball down, and the ball will stop eventually. So when two surfaces, any two surfaces, starts to rub against each other, they generate what or produce a type of force that we call the friction force. And the friction force causes any object, any moving object, to start to slow down and eventually stop. Now, the friction force, you can always remember it by what do you do whenever you are cold, whenever your hands are cold, what do you do? Or you do what? Yes, you rub them against, yes, Ayman, you start rubbing them against each other. And the heat that is generated or produced between your palms is caused because of the friction. Okay.
My hands became hot.
Yes, yes, exactly. This is because of the friction force. The friction force actually generates heat. Okay. So the friction force is when two surfaces starts to rub against each other, and if we're talking about a moving object, eventually this moving object will start to slow down and stop. Now this is a man who is walking. What do you think the two surfaces that will generate a friction force while this man is walking? Where do you think the friction force will be produced while he's walking? Yes, Layan.
On the ground and on his shoes.
Yes, so the friction force will produce between the bottom of his shoe and the ground, right? Okay, so he is producing a friction force between his shoe and the ground. Now, this is the direction of the friction force. If you're moving, or this object is moving this way, the friction force always moving in the opposite direction. It's like pulling an object back because it is supposed to be stopping this object from moving. It's like what? It's like, as I told you before, if you're running towards the door and one of your friends come and grab you from the back of your shirt, okay? Now, will he grab you in the same direction that you're moving to, or in the opposite direction? Huh? Yeah, together, just tell me.
Opposite direction.
Yes, in the opposite direction. So this is what the friction force does. It's like your really bad friend the one that is always pulling you back. Yes, so you're moving to a place and a friend comes and pulls you in the other direction. This is what friction is. Friction
But
always.
without friction, we
Miss, can I
can't
answer?
move.
Now, how many people are talking right now? Anyway, so the friction force acts in the opposite direction of the moving object, okay? Friction force sometimes is very important and sometimes it's not really preferable. It's very important in cases like this case, for example. If you have a moving object like your bicycle or the car, or you're actually moving on your feet and you have a slippery ground underneath you, friction is very important in these cases. For example, if you're riding your bicycle and you want to stop, so you start pressing on the brakes to start increasing the friction between the ground and the tires. And this is how you will start to slow down the bicycle and eventually you will stop. In this case, friction is really important because without the friction, you will not be able to stop. You will just keep moving and maybe there is something very dangerous in front of you and you have to stop right away. The same with the cars. The brakes of the cars, you have to be your parents who are driving the car should be very careful when to use the brakes, because sometimes it's very important because you might hit someone or hit the car in front of you. So the friction in this case is very important. If you're walking on a slippery ground, and I told you before that if you looked at the bottom of your shoe, you will find those stripes and like grooves in the sole of your shoe. This is not for the sake of beautifying your shoe. This is actually very important to increase the friction between your shoe and the ground to stop you from slipping. Okay, do you get it, guys? Do you understand why is friction important?
Yeah, Miss,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Yes, Malik.
Like if I'm dragging a wooden table and
Okay, I'm losing you, Malik. I'm losing you. Your voice is breaking. Okay. I cannot hear you. I still cannot hear you. I'm sorry. Just fix it and I will listen to your question later. Yeah, Nadim, do you have a question or do you want to say so? Yeah. Yes, Nadim.
I wanted to say something. This is why football players wear shoes with the studs on
With those
their,
pointy stuff underneath.
so
Yes.
it could not because the sake of their shoes, it's because the grip onto the ground.
Exactly. This is how they grip. This is how they increase the friction to the ground because they run like and change their direction.
Directions quickly.
Yes, in a lot of times. So it's very important for their shoe to be gripping or to be like steady on the ground. I do understand. Yes, Ayman. Excellent. Thank you, Nadim. Yes, Ayman.
Miss, I think I don't know. I don't really know. I think that Malik is using an actual mic, but he's sticking his mouth in it. That's why it's doing that sound.
No. I think there's something wrong with the wire that is connecting his mic to the laptop. It's fine. It happens. Yes, Malik, are you okay now?
I think
Yes, okay. What's your question? You're dragging a
if
wooden
a
table.
wooden table, it will be easier to drag like the plastic ones with wheels because it has wheels.
Yes, because wheels is a way of reducing the friction. Do you know what's the meaning of reducing a friction?
Yes.
Yes, this is wheels are a very practical way to decrease or reduce or make the friction lower, and this will make it much more easier for us to drag it. Yes.
Oh, we're just gonna talk about reducing the friction.
Okay. Yeah. well, where we reached the part where we're going to talk about this. So we said that there are several things that could reduce the friction. Sometimes I told you that friction is very important in some cases. In other cases, friction will make a problem. It will actually make it harder for the object to move above an object that we want it to move easier. Like, for example, when Malik said that we want to drag a table over the ground, it will be much easier if we added some wheels. This is a way of reducing the friction because the wheels will just roll on the ground and it will make it easier for us to drag anything. Another way is by adding water or ice or oil sometimes to the object in order to reduce the friction. Some other examples or some other situations where friction is not really preferable is when I told you before that sometimes when you're opening a door, you hear this very high creaky sound, right?
Creak.
Yes, you hear this very high sound while you're opening or closing the doors, and this is because the parts that found on one side of the door are actually producing friction between each other, and this is why they start to making this very high sound. So we start oiling them. We start adding oil to those parts, and this way you will not hear this very high sound again. If any of you went to the mechanic with any of your parents or one of your family members, sometimes the mechanic will, Nadim and Ayman, yeah, stop what you're doing, please. Thank you. So sometimes when you go to the mechanic tells your family member or your parent that you have to add some oil to the car. The car needs oiling. Have you seen the situation before?
Yes, it needs
Yes.
fuel. So
No, not fuel. No, they add
Oil
oil.
so it could move.
Yes, they put oil in the front of the car. Do you know the
oh yeah,
car?
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Oh
عند
they
yeah.
add
الموتور
oil.
In the engine.
Exactly. Yes, in the engine. And this is very important.
next to the motor.
Yes, this is very important because if there is no oiling or you did not oil the parts of the car, they start to produce friction between each other. And guess what? Once there is a friction produced between those parts, they start to destroy each other because they, like, the friction starts to make them rub against each other, which will make those parts start to break down. So it's very important. In this case, friction is not really preferable. Another situation or another scenario where friction is not really preferable, if you want to like slide on the ground, like in cases of skiing or skating, you actually want to slip. Okay, so in these cases, if you have like very high friction, you will not have fun because you went there in order to slide on ice, or you want to skate on ice. So you want the friction to be reduced as much as possible so you can enjoy skating or sliding. Okay, so what are the things that may reduce the friction? Water, ice, we said what else? Huh?
Wheels.
Wheels. Huh? What else?
Oil.
Oil. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, guys. So here in those two pictures, we said which one of them do you think the bicycle will move more smoothly? Yes, Nadim.
The one on the sand.
It will move more smoothly on the sand?
Yes.
No, because the sand is actually a rough surface. The sand is a rough surface. So yes, it is. So the tires will not, yeah, the tires will not find it really easy rolling on rough surfaces. The ground or the street will be much better and much easier for anyone who is riding the bicycle on it, especially if the road is new. It will be much better for the person to ride on it. Okay, same here. Which one do you think will be harder for the person to ride a bicycle on? Hey, yes, Ayman.
Of course, on the grass.
On the grass, yes, on the grass it will be harder because again the grass is a rough surface while the street will be a smooth surface. So anyone who is riding the bicycle on the grass will find it much difficult than on the street.
Yes, I have another example of hard surfaces.
Yes.
A carpet.
A carpet is a rough surface, of course. Yes. You have the sandpaper, and the sandpaper is a type of paper that have like very small pointy stuff coming out
Like
of it.
sand.
Yes, like sand. This is an example of a rough surface. The doormat that we put in front of our door in order for anyone who is coming from outside to clean his shoe first before getting inside the house. This is a rough surface. The pineapple, of course, because as you can see, there are spikes coming out of it, so it is a rough surface. The screw, as you can see, those grooves that coming out of the screw is a rough surface. A smooth surface like what? Like the balloon, like especially when you blow the balloon, it will produce this very smooth surface. The mirror is a smooth surface. The CD is a smooth surface. The apple is a smooth surface. Okay. Now there are one remaining PowerPoint that we're going to start with in the next session. It's going to be very fast. The one that is talking about upthrust force and water resistance and air resistance, which is very easy for you guys. We're just going to go through them really quickly, and then we will start answering the worksheets in your books that you're going to take today. So I'll be seeing you next time, guys. Until then, I hope you all have a good time during fasting. Okay? All right. Do you need anything?
No.
All right. Bye,
Oh,
guys.
thank you.
Bye,
Ramadan
guys.
Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem. Bye.
Bye.